Welcome to the second Project Herencia update video. My partner Laura and I have started an exciting journey building an Adobe homestead in northern New Mexico. We are stewarding a beautiful piece of land where we hope to live and work in a more sustainable way, and Adobe is a big part of that dream. We've been focused on our build, so we haven't released updates in a while, but we're excited to share with you how we got our brickyard up and running in this episode. These videos will document our efforts and give us a way to share our progress with family and friends. We also hope we can pay forward what we've learned from others, and that these videos inspire and empower you to dream and build with natural materials yourself. Who knows where this project will take us, but we're excited to share the journey. If you haven't seen our first update, you might want to go back and start there. Otherwise, stick around and watch us get our Adobe brickyard off the ground.
Today, we are kicking off our Adobe production. I'm very excited. Turning this place into a brickyard. This week, to get ready, we went and got almost 2 tons of sand from a local sand and gravel yard. I went up to a small town in the mountain and got some straw. We also got some water storage. So I got 2 55-gallon metal drums and a 250-gallon IBC tote. So we have water, we have straw, we have sand, and the final ingredient is clay. And so in that mound where the prairie dogs live, we're going to start harvesting some clay. And hopefully there'll be a good enough percentage of clay in there that we can make our bricks.
This was our first attempt making bricks. We had just gotten some materials on site at our property and we were just so excited to get started. It was still early in the spring and it was kind of windy, but we had a couple good days in the forecast, so we jumped in. At this point, I had only made bricks with mud mixed by hand in a wheelbarrow, so working with this electric mixer required some trial and error, especially getting the amount of water right. Then we set up the forms on the ground and started moving mud with a wheelbarrow. We also put some burlap on the ground under the wooden forms to try to level the surface out, but it didn't really work, as you'll see here. Some of our bricks are just like super wavy on the bottom side. I don't know if you can capture that well, but they're just kind of like lopsided and goofy. So I think they'll still be usable. We could kind of file them down or scrape them down. But we kind of realized, well, we need a more level surface. So Laura helped kind of rake and level this area, and then we put sand on top to try to make it a little more level. And then once we had it level from the gorilla cart, we just put a really wet mix. You can kind of see if I nudge it. Oh, now it's already drying up. But it's a wetter mix than what we were doing before. So it might take a little longer to dry, but that's just like a little tweak, a little experiment we're doing. We only made 15 bricks today because what we really spent a lot of time on today, I'll show you next. So yeah, this is what we spent a little time on today. We got some treated 8-foot 2x4s and made a little pad, filled it with gravel, a little over a ton of gravel, and then I put some weed barrier underneath it. And the idea here is we just want to kind of level surface. Tomorrow we're getting a shed delivered and just wanted a good platform for it. And so yeah, that's what we got. That's what we worked on today mainly. Even though we were itching to make bricks, we were really just getting set up on our build site. So it was important to acquire this shed as a safe place to store equipment like shovels and tools. And even though it looks worn, we believe in giving used things a second life. And all I really needed to do was replace one roof panel, and this shed was ready to go. Around this time, we had a late April snowstorm coming through, so I had to keep waiting before we could make more bricks. With overnight freezing temperatures and snow in the forecast, I decided to put the time to good use and work on making more ladder forms. We started with 5 forms that could each make 5 bricks, so 25 bricks at a time.
But more forms means more capacity, and if we were going to hit our goal of over 4,500 bricks, we needed to scale up. A standard Adobe brick in New Mexico is typically 10 inches by 14 inches with a thickness equal to a 2x4 on its side, so 3.5 inches. So the process of making forms for these bricks is pretty straightforward. I cut down 2x4s the length of the ladder, which in this case was around 5 feet. And then I cut 2x4s down to 14 inches, which will be the cross pieces. Then we space them 10 inches apart, and we screw them together, and that's how we create this ladder style form for 10 by 14 inch bricks. The only materials I needed were 2x4s and screws. I got some 2x4s new, and I used scraps for some of the others. And I also had these leftover cabinet handles from a kitchen remodel lying around, so I added them to both sides of the forms to make them easier to carry around and to lift. After making the first form, I started to batch the process for the remaining 6 ladder forms. I pre-measured and drilled all of them, and eventually I got into a rhythm cutting, spacing, screwing, and as the rain turned into snow and the day into night, I had already made good progress, and I'll finish up the rest of the work over the next few days.
Over the past couple days, I've been just cranking away, and I've made 7 new of these forms. These forms are how we make the Adobe bricks. They're 10 by 14 inches, and I'm just using a bunch of scrap wood. It's got warps. It's not perfect, but the nice thing about Adobes is that they can, a little forgiving. They can be different sizes, and it's not too big of a deal. So I'm gonna give my first test run of these new forms along with the new mixer we got.
Finally, the weather cleared up, so I was back in the brickyard with the new forms. I spent some time stacking bricks that were mostly dried and raked the space a little bit to prepare to make a new batch of Adobes. From our first couple batches of bricks, we quickly discovered that this smaller electric mixer we were using was creating a bottleneck. Once we had mud in the wheelbarrow, we could pack the mud into the forms at a good pace, but tending the mixer and getting the right consistency was frustrating and slowing us down. So I decided to invest in an upgrade. I found a nearly new 12 cubic foot mixer up in Colorado on Facebook Marketplace for half off its original price and in really great shape. It felt like unlocking a cheat code for Adobe Production to use this machine. You can definitely get away with a much cheaper mixer, especially if you're primarily making mortar and plaster. But since we were planning to make all our own bricks, over 4,500 of them, I believed it was a valuable investment that would speed up our overall output, and honestly, it made a huge difference. One thing you'll notice here is I was using a pump sprayer to wet the forms before packing in the mud. It worked, but eventually we found it much faster just to dunk the whole form into our blue water barrels and clean them off that way. It's just one example of how our process and methods gradually improved through doing. Sometimes the best teacher is simply repetition and paying attention to what's working and what feels tedious or slow. With the new forms and the new mixer, I managed to turn out about 40 bricks, mostly on my own, with a little boost from Laura at the end. For the first time, it felt like our goal of making all our own bricks was actually within reach if we just kept going bit by bit.
So yeah, it's really windy today. Kind of makes it just annoying to work, but just what it is. And yeah, I just had some sand delivered. We basically couldn't make more bricks because we had gone through just about all of our sand. So now that we got more sand, we can make more bricks. Trying out a couple things today. I'm really feeling like I need to add more sand into my mix. I was hesitant to add more sand because I have an abundance of soil, and I just paid, almost $300 for a big sand drop off. So it's not, in the big picture, it's not very much, but just trying to use the resources we have. As my bricks have been drying, it just seems like there's too many cracks. And so really what you're supposed to do is add sand until that's not happening anymore. The clay, as it dries up, it can crack. That's just a signal that you have too much clay in your mix. So no big deal. We're gonna try to adjust our ratios a little bit and get closer to 1-to-1 sand and clay. I was trying 3 parts clay to 2 parts sand, so I'm gonna make that kind of an even mix. Also, having a little bit of a break gave me some time to think about how we wanted to lay out our brickyard now that we have a mixer, and also as we get ready to start excavating and digging trenches for utilities and digging the trench for our foundation. Just kind of wanted the brickyard to be a little bit set back and out of the way. And I'm gonna try just to do a bunch of sifting and basically load it up onto the back of the pickup truck here. So you'll see that soon of how we're sifting the clay in larger quantities. But so far we've probably made about 100 or 120 bricks of, like I said, you know, I would give them a B minus, C plus quality. They will definitely work. We'll find ways to use them, if not in the house, in landscaping, garden walls. There's lots of places we need bricks, so it's not going to be a problem. But yeah, we should always want to improve a little bit.
At this point, we had about 100 bricks in different stages of the curing process. We stand the Adobes on their side so there's more surface area exposed to dry evenly, which also helps prevent cracking. Some of the bricks in this batch had been curing for over 2 weeks, so I decided to test a few sacrificial samples. Here, I'm demonstrating 2 basic compression tests, the drop test and the 3-point pressure test. All the bricks I tested passed the drop test. They were dense and strong, no crumbling or major chipping. But the 3-point pressure test told a more interesting story. The first few bricks I stood on broke under my body weight. At first I was concerned, but as soon as we saw the inside, we could tell they weren't fully cured yet.
It's still drying in the middle, so maybe it's not cured enough. You can kind of see how it's a different color inside than outside. Ready? I barely put any pressure, so I don't know if it's really ready to be tested this way. So I think I'm gonna wait.
What that bottom one here was from the very first batch. So
yeah, so maybe it's drier. Hey, that actually feels better. Could jump on it. So maybe we just need to give them more time to dry. Oh, that's how you twist an ankle.
Show us the inside of it.
Oh yeah, let's see the inside. Yeah, this looks more dry all the way through.
Yeah.
Even still, not quite totally, but a lot drier on the inside. It's a beautiful Saturday out here at the brickyard, and we're feeling good about this batch of Adobes we made last night, just under 20. These are a 1-to-1 sand to soil mix. And we did some burlap underneath again. We'll see if they have a flatter bottom. Yeah, today we're going to try to break a record. How many bricks do you think we can make today?
Well, it depends on our forms.
Well, we have enough forms to make 60 bricks. So do you think we can make 120 bricks today?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're going to try to make 120 bricks today. Ready?
1, 2.
It was around this time that we were really starting to hit our stride with brick making. We had all the forms we needed to make over 100 bricks a day, and we were starting to understand what worked and how to speed up our process. But most of all, we were having fun working together and being outside.
Making ourselves at home.
Each mud brick was a step towards our dream, and it felt super rewarding to step back at the end of the day and see a new batch of bricks curing under the sun that we had made ourselves. There's something deeply satisfying about working with earth, mixing soil, water, and straw into mud, and then shape it into something permanent and real. Every brick represents hours of learning, adjusting, and refining our process. And while the work is physical and repetitive, it never feels monotonous. Each day brought small victories, a cleaner form release, a better mud consistency, a faster rhythm between mixing and molding. And looking out across rows of drying adobes, we weren't just seeing bricks. We were seeing walls, rooms, and ultimately shelter. We were seeing our future taking shape one brick at a time.
So we're out here. We stood up our adobes. We made a really big batch. Stood them up, let them dry. So now we are stacking them. Over here, you can see. One thing that we are seeing that we don't love is this ground is not super. Well, it looks level, but there's like little bumps and stuff throughout. You know, some of it from prairie dog holes and things like that. But a lot of the bottom side of our bricks have little waves and bumps. And so we just feel like we maybe need to do a little more site prep here so that we can flatten these out and just make these adobes a little more consistent. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and stack these all and let them keep drying.
So that's where we were in our journey at the end of April. From those first few experimental batches to a full brickyard operation producing over 100 bricks a day, we learned that success with Adobe isn't about perfection on day one. It's about paying attention, adapting as you go, and being willing to invest in the right tools when they make a real difference. The mixer upgrade, the additional forms, and the countless small adjustments to our process all added up to something bigger. Confidence that we could actually reach our goal. We're not there yet. We still have thousands of bricks to make, but we've proven to ourselves that it's possible. Thanks for following along on this part of our Adobe journey. If you're enjoying these updates, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep building, and we'll see you in the next update.